Namaste. Welcome to Tuesday Satsang. Here we are, sitting on the Sat, or Sat sitting on us. I'm not sure which it's going to be. All right, welcome. Well, I had two conversations I was going to talk about that came out to me this morning. It's interesting, this kind of, I'm living a choice and subsequent choices that I have made since this path began. Probably in my whole life, I've been living my choices. And the thing about the organization of my person has always been fairly consistent with my choices. I have sort of a purposeful momentum. My life's always had, if I have something that I want or something I choose, it becomes like something then I accept and I keep choosing. It's almost an unquestioning loyalty, you might say, to what I choose, to what I also then commit to. Now that's a design thing. It isn't something I do. And I know that most people don't have that. That there's a choosing, and then there's a wavering, and there's a doubting, and then there's another kind of choice, and then and so on and so forth. So this morning, I woke up in that space of choice. And it's always new. And it was very different this morning in that nothing was moving. It wasn't just silent. Well, I've had silence much the time, where even though there's noise, there's no noise over here. There's no thinking, no action. But this was stillness, and I was moving. And I looked out, and the trees, they were barely moving, but they were in stillness. The kitchen sink was in stillness. Satchamai was stillness. She was also...
That's amazing.
Absolutely. No, she wasn't still. Glorious. There was this gloriousness, like exaltation, but it was mine. It was like the universe, the world was in a rare state. It wasn't just mine. That was the feeling. And I recognized, I'm sitting there because alarm went off. And I noticed that I moderate my day. Every aspect of my life is moderated. Not controlled, but moderated. I set the alarm in the morning. I know that if I let the samadhi go, they'll go all day long. I manage my exercise. I manage my diet. Everything is very much moderated. And when I came out, and every morning, one of the moderations is I read the Bhagavad Gita. Right? Don't need to read the Bhagavad Gita, but I read the Bhagavad Gita. I read the Bhagavad Gita in case you don't. I moderate my debt in case you don't. I stay steady in case you don't. I keep choosing what I've chosen in case you don't. If I cease to act, it'll get a lot harder for you. That's the nature of the quality. But it's pointing to something about this attitude of moderation. Because moderation is, you don't let yourself go, sleep too much, eat too much, not exercise too much, all these things. You come to this moderating, a bit of everything. Some enjoyment here and some difficulty and challenging there. It's all part, because it'll always change. Yesterday I was in my version of dejection. Every time before I do a program, I have to move what may be there that's going to be revealed. So I become familiar with dejection. It's like part of the cycle of every day, the cycle of every week, the cycle of every month, the cycle of every year, the cycle of this life, the cycle of all lives. We are all swimming in something that's constantly cycling within us and without us. That's what the gunas are pointing to. So it's not like it's going to get better. It's just going to get different. And then another kind of different, and another kind of different, and another kind of different. And that's how life is. Now, what we do with that cycle is where the problem lies. We get invested in one piece of that cycle or another. And we make it into a story. We make it into a self-doubting. We make it into, did I make the wrong decision? Or maybe I shouldn't be doing this. We make it into something more than just what it is. So moderation is a way of holding yourself each day. It's a structuring, which is one of the things I realize consciousness loves structuring. Because when it's structured, it can take a direction. Otherwise, it goes every which way. So this moderating is staying steady. Now in the immersion program, that was the main theme. Stay steady. Stay with what's there. Don't try to change it or fix it unless it's absolutely the requirement of the moment. Do what needs to be done. And know that whatever is happening, wonderful or difficult, unpleasant or pleasant, it too will pass. This is what the Gita points to, first starts pointing to in chapter 6, which is the last chapter before the new book. But it carries a lot of practical information in here. Yoga removes all sorrow from one who is temperate in food and recreation, is self-controlled, detached from the fruits of work, and who has regulated their sleep and waking state. When such a seeker, through controlled mind, develops a natural dispassion for objects of pleasure or pain, and their consciousness rests only on the self, it attains the yogi siddhi state. Now, what's yoga? Yoga is merger with that which is the object of your seeking. The yoga siddhi state is the state of a yogi. That means one who is equanimitous, one who has moderated, one in which spirit and life have found their balance and their right relationship, who knows how to swim in the waters of the endless churning gunas, which exist in this dimension and every other dimension until the Supreme itself. The only thing that doesn't churn is that absolute silence and stillness. That's the presence of the Supreme itself in you when it happens. So in that moment, I'm the Supreme as a person in a body, waking up in the morning to another day, regardless of yesterday. In this way, Rishi and I are the same. Our dog Rishi, right? Called Wise One. Every day is the same. He's just different, and he doesn't hang on to yesterday, nor project into tomorrow. It's just, if it's a change, he just shakes it off and moves on. He does it in every minute. I give him a petting. He loves for me to pet him. He rubs his belly on the carpet in my room and then waits for me to scratch his back, and then looks at me lovingly, licks my hand as I'm petting him. And then I pat him a couple of times, and he shakes it all off and goes off and does whatever he does, chase rabbits. So they got something we don't have, but we have something he doesn't have. We have choice. We have the ability to organize our choices. We have the ability to stay steady with our choices. That the more we keep choosing what we chose, the more we're in the state of this steadiness, the more we stop. The more we quit struggling. The more we are here now with what's arising without an investment with yesterday or the 5 minutes before or the 10 minutes ahead or tomorrow or the next week. So all this work is really about getting to the right relationship with yourself in your life where there is an organizing principle in you. It has very much something to do with your intelligent will, to the waking consciousness intelligence, not just the vast intelligence, your waking consciousness intelligence. it gets activated whenever it looks like there's a choice. It says, this, no, maybe I want that. Oh, no, maybe I want that. Oh, no, maybe I want that. They can go that way. What happens with that? Then you get caught up in making a choice. No resolution until a choice is made, and then you keep doubting that choice. So that doesn't work. I mean, if you have an organization of yoga, yoga is purposeful action for an outcome. Yoga is an organization of ourselves, so everything else is for the yoga. Not everything else is enhanced by the yoga. We're looking to organize ourselves purposely each day and every day because your ego is doing that every day. It's going to go wherever it wants to go, and we know ego. It just wants to go everywhere all at once, any time it can. Certainly to what it prefers, and then stay there and never, ever, ever come out of the enthrallment with whatever that one thing we chose. That feels good. So this is the yogi being acknowledged as expression of what's possible for a human being. Anything you have done in your life, be it because you wanted to or because of necessity, has been a way of organizing your consciousness purposely. If necessity drives you, well then, you're not in full responsibility until you keep choosing it. And then you show up at work, and then you do what needs to be done, and you meet your clients or pay your bills or whatever it is you do. And that organizes you for that day, and you move through that day no matter what your mood is, or at least you don't have as many choice. In one way, when we stop, we reduce our choices. When we reduce our choices, we become simple. Reducing our choices has another word, committing. Committing to be here. Committing to what is showing up to play your part. That committing principle that says, okay, I'm going to do this, even if it doesn't go to your mind, it just goes to the organization of your attention, is evidence of the yogi in you. Our ability to live in a committed way allows our consciousness to continue to grow, to evolve, to get organized, actually. What all consciousness really needs is to get organized. It can only get organized when it's aware of itself as we are aware of ourselves. And then we have all these separated parts that doesn't recognize it's all consciousness, but this is my feeling consciousness, this is my thinking consciousness, this is my body's consciousness, this is my mood consciousness, this is my mother's consciousness that's inhabited and affected my consciousness, this is my father's consciousness that's inhabited and affected my consciousness. And so you begin to recognize that we are a vehicle for unfolding of consciousness, of which we're only one individual place, location, where it happens. The whole universe, the whole fucking universe is happening in you, at you, with you. You are the place that all this happens. We are the only means in the whole universe, and beings like us, that can actually become conscious and bring it into life so that consciousness can know what it is and its purpose, and be able in that state of awakening to awaken to the miraculous condition it finds itself in, which is a fucking miracle. An extraordinary event in the universe, more important than any other thing that any other endeavor humanity is engaged in. You know, looking at the light from 13 billion years ago, you know, that seems like really important. But no, the guy who's looking at it is what's most important. Or the girl. So this issue of self-esteem and self-worth, it's wrong. It's just untrue. It's just shit that you picked up along the way because people aren't organized. They're going this way and that way, like Rishi, like a dog, like a puppy, like a bird, like an insect. It's just, oh, this, oh, no, that, oh, no, this, oh, that, maybe not that, maybe this, maybe that. We add that extra factor of doubting our actions, doubting our thoughts, doubting our feelings, doubting everything. We have that unique quality in us. It's a blessing. It's also evidence of intelligence. Don't find doubt in animals. You're either eaten or you're eating. Only in us humans does it get muddled. So how do you resolve these issues of doubt and guilt and shame and diminishment? You take charge. You get simple. You stay focused. You do what needs to be done where you are. And you stay. You stay where you are until everything up there has shown itself to you. And then it falls away automatically. You don't have to do a thing. There's no other place than the place you are, but you have to stay. And you have to make it your yoga. You have to make it what you moderate, where you manage, what you include in every day's actions. Then that in you, which is eternal, keeps growing, keeps strengthening its capacity to be you and you it. And there's this kind a truing, an effectiveness, a capacity to move in the direction that is unique to you. Now, what that direction is, I can tell you it'll all end up in the same place, but there's many different ways to get to the same place. We each have our own unique way to that place. All you have to do is choose the place you're in. Now, I will add the caveat that a good choice is likely to be more effective than a bad choice. It's all going to get you there. But if we're looking at efficiency, like maybe this life or maybe in the next 100 lives, then the good choice helps to have an informed choice, a choice engaging your intelligence, engaging the best parts of your experiences when you did the right choices and you noticed how it worked and how you woke up to life and how you got control of things that before you couldn't control of, and you got over your reactivity and you got over that doubting and questioning of yourself, and you started having some sense of self-worth, some sense of, hey, I'm okay, I'm making it, they're making it, we're all struggling in this together, and there's some spaciousness for people to be, spaciousness for you to be. So these intelligent choices are proportional to how awake we are. That degree of light that we carry. Not light to see the heavens and the gods, but light that lets you see your personality running its stuff. The light to know yourself in the content of existence. We call that owning your own shit. The more awake you are, the more you can own your own shit because you're sure, you're absolutely convinced it's their fault. That fault, this fault, the world's fault, God's fault, somebody's fault, but not mine. And that's how you empower yourself. You moderate, you stay steady, you make intelligent choices, you keep choosing those choices, You don't feed the things that take you off track. You withdraw your consent and do the things that are before you to do that you set in place. I don't have to do anything. I could just sit in that chair in my room and not come out, or come out just to piss and shit and eat. But I organized this way. I was organized this way as a human being. So this is why you're getting this now, 20 years after it happened. Because it's got a momentum. It knows that the person is the key to that great thing that has come. That you have, as a person, a role to play in bringing that in the world. And that the effort you apply is only the withdrawing from the habit of your unorganized self. That it not wanting to let go of following its moods and its preferences enough, not kill it. You still get to enjoy yourself. You still get to have good days and bad days. You still get to indulge, just not always. Moderation. So you give a little bit. You should give up cigarettes. Well, you have one a week, or one a day. And then they're moderating, and you live as long as you will smoking a cigarette a day. Consequences are inevitable in this dimension, and that's one of the great things about the domain of karma. There's cause and effect. You always get an opportunity to learn from the areas of life you have not learned from yet. Life is the arena in which consciousness develops and becomes more and more perfect in its manifesting the possibility of what it is as you, as consciousness, collaborated together, being in this existence. So notice the stoppedness. So for me, it's everything's still, everything's silent. I don't know what it's like for you, but that's how it is for me. It's just stopped. And what's here when it's stopped? I can label it. I let you label it. But it's a clue, it's an entry point to the gem, the secret of all that you've ever sought ever in all your lives, in all the strivings and all the struggles of any human being, no matter how noble, how expansive, how relatively true it's been in its motive, it ends up with, this. I have found it. It is here. My quest is complete. See, there's no other moment you can find it in but this moment. So if you have this now, good, you can have this forever, but you're going to have to organize all the other parts of yourself so this can happen. You can't let go when you've got a taste of what it is, because everything else in you wants to be anyplace else but silent and still. All the activity that you are, inside and outside, is your ego, is your separative self, is your habits, is your conditioning. Every human being is just a vessel. Subtle and human, environmental forces are filling you all the time. You've organized the self amidst that, usually because of pain or some kind of trauma. And you recognize, wait, I'm separate. Mommy and daddy maybe don't love me. Or there's pain, that hurts, that's awful. Or I'm hungry and there's nobody coming and feeding me. These all become how we become a self, an ego. Ego itself is the only way we can exist with any possibility. We can't throw out the ego. Ego's talking right now. Ego's listening right now. Ego's having whatever experience it's having right now. Ego's not the problem. Ego is simply not growing in its ability to recognize what it is. Because that principle of I amness is evidence of our supreme nature. The part of us that can know we're experiencing, that can know we're thinking, that can know we're feeling, that can know these things, is the core of our me-ness, our ego, our I, me, my me, your me, our me, its me. Its me is your me and my me. There is no other me. So your personal me is the same as that one vast principle, which brings us intelligence, brings us the capacity to make choice, brings us the ability to know and experience anything and remember it and make conclusions about it and make decisions about it and learn how things work and learn how to move into life more and more effectively beyond what our instincts would tell us, beyond what our impulses would tell us, beyond what our preferences would tell us. We begin to become masterful relatively as a physical being versus all other kinds of physical beings that are run by their instincts. We have choice. And therefore, in the choices, then we learn consequences of choices. And then we begin to learn our own authority by meeting and avoiding those consequences as we organize our lives to be more effective in getting happiness and getting to come to some quietude, to getting to some relaxation, to getting to some silence and stillness, because it all in the embrace of the lover you long to be in the arms of, in that moment of the embrace, and you're resting together, lies the same goal. It's just you took a lot of content to get that moment. It's right here now, much more efficient. Don't need anybody else to find it, or anything else, or for it to be any different than it is. Krishna, this yoga, which presupposes even-mindedness, appears to be an impossible proposition to me because my mind is so fickle. My mind is so restless, turbulent, stormy, and obstinate. Right? Find yourself in those words? It seems to me as difficult to control as the wind or the currents or the tides or the weather. And the Blessed Lord said, this yoga, Arjuna, may be difficult at the beginning, right? You know, happiness is where it's the poison at the beginning and the nectar at the end. So it's always going to be poison at the beginning when you start managing your turbulent mind and your turbulent emotions and your turbulent life. Yeah, it's not going to be something your ego wants to do because it prefers the turbulence. The egoing, the conditioned ego, I should be clear about, the programmed ego, your habitual personality. But through constant practice and dispassion, that means not getting too invested in the outcome, right? This is the chapter 6 of yoga. So it's you meditate, and it isn't meditation, it's practicing meditation. You're not getting any result. You're sitting there, no outcome. Anything, just persist. Fuck this. No payoff. I could go and listen to some music or have a beer. I'll do better than sitting here in meditation, right? Yet, it's funny how that is. Well, we don't know. Of course, we're not going to know, even if we're taking actions to find the thing we don't know. So you don't know if your choices are going to serve And if you don't persist, you won't know it doesn't work either. So you really are taking the action for some other reason than what your intelligent will would say, hey, this makes sense. So it's a different principle. We do it on this principle called faith. And we do it on the principle of being able to access something deeper than trust or hope or belief or any of those other things that usually motivate the human being. Desire, anger, revenge, cruelty, well, down the list forever. Faith is evidence that what you seek is already there, even when it's not apparent at all. How do you know it's faith? It has a compelling pull that had you do something you wouldn't normally choose to do. Like come to Washoe. Or spend this time, whatever time you're doing this, listening to this guy talking on the screen, right? Faith has a compelling pull. If you follow the faith, that means you take actions and allow the faith to guide you, rather than your mind or your emotions or your mood or your preferences guide you. Then the quality of that faith strengthens. That faith, of course, is what you are in truth, but you don't know that. It takes some alignment with that faith before you begin to notice, hey, I'm feeling more organized. Hey, I'm feeling more peaceful. Hey, I'm feeling more right with myself. I'm feeling more right with my partner. I'm more right with my kid, my boss. There's sort of this movement of rightness that starts coming, and you begin to recognize, maybe I'm taking the right actions by meditating or listening to the sky or letting my faith lead me. Because the faith knows the purpose of your birth. The faith is the Dharma. What outwardly we do is secondary. To know your own faith is the Dharma. To be in touch with that quality in you that compels you to go beyond yourself is evidence that what you seek has already come. And it's growing in you. You are becoming it, and very importantly, it is becoming you. And then there's grace. Grace is the recognition of your own blessedness. Grace is an event of consciousness knowing itself, knowing it's in the right place, in the right alignment. Grace is a nurturance, a nurturing of our wounded and shattered and fractured and diminished ego. It lets us know the trueness that we are. And it's a felt sense. Grace is both love and truth simultaneous. It is the faith knowing itself through you as you. And this deepens. So we follow the path of faith for the grace. The grace is the compulsion. The grace is the evidence you've been doing so. Grace is the perfume of what you're becoming. It is the radiance of that quality of yourself. Yes, I agree. This yoga is difficult for one whose mind is not controlled, but if one strives hard with perseverance, it is attainable. So this is where we collaborate. Our ego, our willful, self-determined, stubborn, resistant, whimsical, moody ego. The egoing that's conditioned, the conditioned ego. The little self, the little miserable, complaining, dissatisfied, always looking, always, this ain't it, this ain't, you aren't it, I'm not it, it's none of it's it. The knower. It loses its grasp on our attention. Our ability to apply our attention becomes more and more organized. Our bodies start aligning with our faith, with our grace. The body knows the grace. The body carries the faith. The body knows without us knowing. If you could actually experience your body knows, I exist, I deserve to exist. This life is a fucking miracle. I want to be here. I want to live. I want to have it all. The body knows. It's the rest of us that doesn't. And the body itself can't get us there. Right? That's what addictions are. We think that's it. And then we get, the body takes us into addictions. And we can't get out of them. So you do that for a few times, few suicides, few lifetimes. Eventually you get, okay, I can't just listen to the body. And then you start saying, okay, then I use some intelligence. And then I start, maybe if I have a life where I'm living for something more than myself, I'll feel better. And it works. And so I live for other people. I live for my children. I live for my wife. I live for the people I serve. You move out of the paradigm of the self-serving, of the egocentric body. The body is very, very, very egocentric. It's all about me. So you know that when you're in your me, selfish me, not the true me, but the me for me's sake, we are miserable. One form of misery, either misery that has happened, is happening, or about to happen. So when we find the path of faith, and the grace is pulling us, then the organization of your attention, the moderation of your life, the food, the sleep, the recreation, the things you do, the moderation then becomes the means you can become steady. You satisfy just a little bit. I don't spend all day rubbing Rishi's stomach. He gets restless even if he does. The principle being is that I give it a little bit. Okay, here's a little bit. Now leave me alone. Here's a little bit. Now leave me alone. Here's a little bit. Leave me alone. And eventually they know to just take a little. And then you don't even give it so much. Then learns how to live without that. And then pretty soon it fades away. This is how you get over all addictions, all preferences. You just live without them. And then you notice they're not so important. So everything I'm speaking is fundamentally experiential truth. This is how it works. You align your life so you can steadily continue on the path that's aligned with your faith to recognize for yourself as truth that your own experience is valid when you are experiencing those moments of grace, and that you are aligning yourself with a purpose that grows and grows in its clarity and its direction the more you align yourself with your faith. That's how the world works. Attention is unfocused at first. As a child, right? You had to learn to read, right? You had to learn the letters, and you had to learn how to act on the letters. That means L, A, E, O, right? You had to learn to organize your consciousness to speak, to recognize letters, and to put them together in a way that made sense. And then you got to build these like whole collections of letters together, and you could write a sentence and a paragraph, and pretty soon you were another fucked up human being. But that's the principle. It's how it works. So at first you don't know, and then you begin to sense it. There's that recognition. Okay, so I do this. And then you practice. Okay, I sit in meditation and I do that, and it doesn't seem to be working. And then, oh, look at that. I feel a little better. Look at, during the day, I'm clearer and I don't need as much coffee. And things start changing. This clarification comes through the steadiness on this journey. And what are you clarifying? The most magnificent truth there is. The most ocean, the vast, intense ocean of love that there is. The grace becomes not just a drop or a draught or a cup. It starts flooding. It starts flowing through you. You start experiencing the grace as a current. That means you are in alignment with your faith. And it's taking you there, even if you don't know, even if you don't think it's a good idea, even if you're rebelling and resisting and think it should be different. So you trust the current, and you stay steady in the current. Notice I keep saying you, because that's why I bother speaking. If I stop speaking, can you do this? I'd be happy. I'd be done. I'd do that thing. Just sit in my chair all day. But it's too far along. It's with me now. What's in the chair and what's here in this chair, or when I'm working on my models, or when I'm doing the next thing on my to-do list with Satsang. It's there. Tasty, tasteless, repulsive, attractive, fun, miserable. It's all there. I don't need to be anyplace else. You don't need to be anyplace else. The fact that you're here, or some of you it's new, first time you've been in the room, is evidence that you, at least to some extent, have been pulled by the pull of your faith. That you've organized your life quite a bit to actually show up. To drink from the pool of this. To drink from this lake. Maybe it's an ocean. Today it feels like an ocean. And nourishes that quality. This nourishing is your remembrance. It's not something of the mind that can forget or learn. It's something of your being that knows. In your body that knows. Yesterday I read chapter 15. I always love chapter 15. I do have a preference for some chapters in the Gita. Don't tell anybody. But I earn the preference by reading all the other chapters. So today I get to earn the not preference of chapter 16. The yoga of divine and undivine attributes, where, I have a living example, so they're just describing Trump perfectly, so I don't have to really read the Gita, chapter 16, to find the undivine attributes. But it does point to something that might allow us to have a sense of what's unfolding in us. Because it is evidence of my own experience that many of the things that are called here divine attributes are symptoms that come to us when we live aligned with our faith. So it's like, yeah, maybe we're born with divine attributes. I can say that people who are by nature more positive, more willing to learn, have an easier path than people who aren't. But even those who are more likely to have divine attributes can have completely developed undivine attributes in the journey without the right supporting environment and circumstances of their lives. So it is a crapshoot every life you take, even if you've developed these attributes in another life, if you can bring them forward this life. It's often you have to keep doing it each life you take. This journey takes a long, long time, but 13 billion years for light to see light, for a human being to see the origin of the creation, the light at the origin of the creation. Well, a few billion lifetimes, not so bad. 13, 1 billion lifetimes, 100,000, 1 million lifetimes. Not so bad to learn the lesson. If you're an eternal being, so what the shit? What the problem? What you bitching about? Of course it takes time. Everything takes time because you're in time and space. So, the first thing of the qualities, he says, absence of fear. Absence of fear? Come on, you got to be kidding. Are you fearless? Right? That's a high criteria. That kind of shut out almost everybody right off the bat. I mean, purity of being the next one. Well, maybe you could say, yeah, well, sometimes I'm pure. Absence of fear is really a quality where the structured ego isn't invested. Fear, there's terror, there's shock. Fear is the story of the mind, projecting often to the future. Now, that's one definition of fear. I realize there's others. But basically, the thing of anxiety and worry and fear are also various descriptions of our inability or lack of familiarity with the nature of existence. To be in existence or to recognize this is what it is. If somebody pulls a gun on you and nobody has ever pulled a gun on you, then that first event you could call fear. But it's actually the doorway of a new experience. Right? It's a showing you something about the nature of reality. I worked with delinquent kids. I found out how easily manipulated I was by them. They are the most successful manipulators. I was nothing. I was peanuts. I was bonbons. They were just enjoying manipulating me. For no other reason, just to manipulate me. I was their cage keeper. And they were shrewd. So I learned a lot. It opened a doorway about parts of human nature I would have never learned otherwise. So these things are not black and white in that way. It really has to do with our capacity to be and willingness to stay in presence with what arises in existence. Because as I tell people, the experience of fear is an event in your body. It's in your nervous system. It's happening for you, but it doesn't need to be you. That ability to step back from fear, we train soldiers how to be that way. They develop a numbness to situations of shock and overwhelm, too much noise, too much demand, too much discomfort, so that they can function and pull the trigger when needed. So there is this way we can condition it out. Life can do that if you live. I was raised in a ghetto where violence was part of everyday life. It was, people beating you up or chasing you or, drunk drivers driving this way and that way. The environment was not safe like the environment most people live in these days. And that prepared me for life. To not have kind of a blithe, I left home at the age of 16 and I hitchhiked, I was a 15-year-old boy standing outside the road hitchhiking. And I got picked up by some people. I had no idea that they were sexual predators. Discovered what you do with a sexual predator when they picked you up as a hitchhiker. And I was just a very clear no. And stop the car now, I'm out the door. So there was something in me that came from the environment I came in that gave me the ability to not be overwhelmed by fear. To be able to be traveling on the road when I was 15 years old with no money. Just hitchhiking and picking up gifts of food from people I would talk to. I would just say, I haven't eaten, do you have some food? I didn't even question it. I didn't even think about it. I also stole from the fruit stands regularly. That was one thing I would do. Feed myself. So but there was no fear there. It was like all of a discovery. Now, is that a divine attribute? Yes, maybe so. Maybe I had lived enough life. Remember 3 lives in World War II, so I know that I was exposed to tremendous violence and devastation. I was part of it, as a fact. I was the violent creator. I was the one who was creating the violence. So I know that the maturing of the soul brings this capacity to come to a place where fear is no longer the organizing principle. And that allows for faith to be more accessible, to be able to trust to stay hitchhiking on the road even after a bad experience, to be some days without food if there's no food available, to become more resilient, more cunning in being able to get food in the process. So these are not often available these days. You don't have that many opportunities. We are so safe. We have huge organizations and rules about safety. What's safety? No fear. So we don't have much exposure to experiencing fear. It's usually psychological, right? We see it in movies. We get fearful in movies. We get a little payoff because fear is one of the human experiences, right? Oh my God, they're going to kill them. And you're going to feel that fear. The body says, okay, yeah, that's fear. Yes. I feel awake. I feel alive. That's why we enjoy movies and we pay to be fearful. Scary movies. Oops, not me. Am I running out of time? 9 minutes.
You still have to make an announcement.
Oh, thanks. I will get to that. Let me finish reading this. Purity of being, perseverance in the pursuit of yoga, charity, self-control, sacrifice, study of scriptures, austerities, and uprightness. These are all positive sattvic human qualities. Absence of violence, truthfulness, absence of anger, self-giving, peacefulness, absence of vilification, compassion, and absence of covetousness, gentleness, modesty, and absence of fickleness, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, purity, absence of hatred, freedom from malice and pride. These are attributes of divine wealth. Pretty hopeless, right? But you got at least 2 or 3. And we can do a lot with 2 or 3. And then he goes on to undivine attributes. Okay, it's interesting. That's the ringing of the phone tone set a reaction in my system that brought me here, back out of the state I was in and brought me back here. I'm so conditioned to phones. I'm afraid of phones. That's why it's off. That's why nobody ever calls me. Yeah, see? It's moderation. All right, so I think I'm supposed to announce that we have upcoming a 9-day retreat. So we still have, I understand, a few spaces for people. 2?
2 spaces for here.
For people to stay here in Washoe, to be here with me and with us physically. So I invite you to take advantage of the opportunity to do so. There's nothing more powerful than the proximity. Being in the proximity with me and with others who have been with me is a very, very powerful entrainment vibrationally of your consciousness to get a sense of what it is that this path is about. At an experiential level, at a physical level, at a mental awareness level. So I invite you to do that. And then, of course, we have the remote aspect of the program that you can participate remotely. And then the talks only aspect, which is on the every day we do a talk. So in the retreat, we have 3 sittings each day. They're now reduced to an hour and a half. I begin to recognize that 2-hour sittings does not serve. We can do just as well with an hour and a half sitting in these retreats. And it also gives more time for people to integrate the energy in the course of the 9 days. It's an immersion event. So if you haven't done it before, or if you've done it before and you need a refresher, then certainly do that. Its dates are coming up, I think 17th is the start.
I don't know.
19th? Okay, so the 19th of August, we'll do a evening program. Those of you who may want to come here, I recommend if you're traveling a distance, give yourself time to recover from any time gap, jet lag that may be, so that you can be more present for the program. And I also recommend that you stay a day or two afterwards to let the energy settle down, back down into your system, so you can absorb what has happened and be able to be more functional as you return to home. All right, so there it is. I did my duty. Now here we are. Another satsang, another bonbon, another poison pill. We'll see which way it ends up.
And next week we have World Peace Meditation.
And next Tuesday will be the World Awakening
A World Awakening.
Meditation Intervention, which are also free. So, all right, so now let's just take 5 minutes in silence and give a little bit of that stillness and silence that was there, that is here with each of us, to come in. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shree. All glory to the Supreme. May truth, love, and grace come in and through each of you.